Rome stood on the brink of total destruction. Hannibal had just delivered the deadliest blow in the Republic's history. 80,000 Roman soldiers lay slaughtered on the fields of Cannae. The eternal city itself was within striking distance of the enemy. And yet, Rome refused to fall. In part 1, we watched the bloody birth of a civilization, from a she-wolf's milk to the near annihilation of everything it had built. Now, in part 2, the story takes its most dramatic turn yet. We will witness one of the greatest military comebacks in history, how Rome carried the war into Hannibal's own homeland, how a young commander named Scipio would rise from the ashes of defeat, and how the victory that saved the Republic would ultimately sow the seeds of its own downfall. The rise of Rome was extraordinary. Its fall would be even more shocking. Let's continue the entire history of Rome. Roman allies in Italy began to defect. Panic spread through the city. For the first time in generations, Rome genuinely believed it might cease to exist. Hannibal marched to the gates of Rome itself in 211 BCE. He stood outside the walls and looked at them. He rode around their perimeter. He assessed them carefully. And he did not attack.
Military historians still debate why. His siege equipment was insufficient for walls that strong. He was waiting for his brother, Hasdrubal, to bring reinforcements from Spain. His supply lines were already stretched to breaking, and he could not afford the casualties a direct assault would cost. While Hannibal waited, Rome changed its strategy entirely. Rather than continuing to chase Hannibal around Italy, the Roman general Scipio took the war to Carthage itself, to Hannibal's homeland in North Africa. And then Rome delivered Hannibal the most devastating message a general can receive. A bag was dropped outside his camp. When it was brought before him and opened, it contained the severed head of his brother Hasdrubal. The Romans had intercepted and destroyed the reinforcement army. No help was coming. The great Carthaginian general stared at his brother's face for a long moment and said nothing that history records. He returned to Carthage to defend his homeland. He was defeated at the Battle of Zama in 202 BCE by Scipio, who would forever after carry the name Scipio Africanus. Hannibal fled, wandered as a fugitive across the ancient world, and when the Romans finally cornered him in the region of present-day Turkey, he drank poison. He would not be taken alive.
Carthage surrendered, was stripped of its navy, its territories, its power, left with a small coastal remnant of what had been an empire. It was not enough for Rome. Half a century after the Second War, a Roman senator named Cato ended every speech he gave, on every topic, regardless of what was being debated, with the same 3 words: Carthage must be destroyed. In 146 BCE, Rome attacked the weakened remnant of Carthage. The city burned for 17 days. A city of 500,000 people. Those who survived the initial assault were locked inside buildings, which were then set on fire. Of the entire population, perhaps 50,000 survived. The men killed, the women and children sold into slavery. The ruins were salted, so nothing would grow. Rome had not defeated an enemy. It had erased a civilization, out of fear that it might one day recover and threaten them again. This was the logic of self-defense, taken to its ultimate, terrible conclusion.
Meanwhile, the patrician class had grown richer than any Romans in history. They competed in extravagance with a fervor that would look deranged by any era's standards. Banquets with thousands of dishes, nightingale tongues imported as delicacies,
Dining hall ceilings rigged with hidden panels that showered guests in rose petals, sometimes so heavily that guests suffocated and died, which the host apparently found amusing. Wines purchased for the equivalent cost of 100 slaves per gallon, sought specifically because of their age. The letters SPQR still appeared on every public monument: the Senate and the people of Rome. But the people had become invisible to the Senate, and the Senate served only those wealthy enough to matter.
Something was going to break. The only question was what, and who would be holding the pieces when it did. The answer arrived in 50 BCE in the form of a man returning from 8 years of military campaigns in Gaul, modern France, Belgium, parts of Switzerland and Germany. Julius Caesar. He was brilliant, charismatic, and almost pathologically ambitious. During his campaigns, he killed over 1 million people and enslaved another 1 million. He wrote about it in elegant, precise Latin prose that is still used to teach the language in classrooms today. He framed it as service to Rome. It was also the making of Julius Caesar. He returned to Italy with 40,000 battle-hardened veterans, a personal fortune accumulated from conquered territories, and the most dangerous kind of momentum, the momentum of a man who has never been stopped. The Senate fled. Pompey fled to Egypt, where he was murdered on the beach by men who thought killing him would please Caesar. It did not please Caesar, but it removed his last serious rival. Caesar took Rome. He declared himself dictator, not for the traditional 6 months in a crisis, but for life. He put his own face on Roman coins, the first living Roman to do so. He accepted divine honors and allowed temples to be dedicated to him. He was doing, with calm deliberation, everything the Republic had been designed to prevent. 60 senators, calling themselves the Liberators, decided to stop him. They were not right about what Caesar had become. They were also not entirely right about what would follow his removal. But on March 15th, 44 BCE, the Ides of March, they moved. Caesar was walking toward his golden chair in the Senate chamber when they surrounded him. One man grabbed his toga, another drew a dagger. Then 23 men stabbed him, one after another, as though the act needed to be shared, the guilt distributed so thinly that none of them would bear the weight of it alone. Among them was Marcus Junius Brutus, a man Caesar had trusted, favored, possibly loved as a son. When Caesar saw Brutus raise his blade, he stopped struggling. He pulled his toga over his face and fell. When Brutus was later asked how he could have killed the man who had been like a father to him, he answered with words that have echoed across 2,000 years. "Not that I loved Caesar less," he said, "but that I loved Rome more." Rome did not agree. The people flooded the streets in grief and rage. They burned the Senate chamber. The liberators fled the city. What the assassins had hoped would restore the Republic instead plunged it into 13 more years of civil war. Because Caesar was dead, but the conditions that had created Caesar were very much alive. From the wreckage of those civil wars emerged an 18-year-old boy, Caesar's great-nephew and adopted heir. His name was Gaius Octavius, and he would become the most consequential political figure in the history of the Western world. History knows him as Augustus. He was cold, patient, methodical, and absolutely merciless when necessary. He waited out enemies, outmaneuvered rivals, and in 31 BCE, after defeating Mark Antony and Cleopatra at the Battle of Actium, he stood alone as the master of the Roman world. And then he did something extraordinarily clever. He didn't call himself king. He refused the title emperor. He told the Senate he was simply restoring the Republic. He was merely the princeps, the first citizen, a humble servant of the Roman people who happened to control the army, the treasury, the provinces, and the judiciary. He kept the Senate, he kept the consuls, he maintained all the theatrical forms of the Republic. He just made sure that every thread of real power ran through him personally. It was the most successful political illusion in history. Everyone could tell themselves that the Republic still lived. Everyone knew it didn't, and everyone, exhausted by decades of civil war, was deeply relieved to pretend otherwise. The Senate granted him the title Augustus, the revered one. His family name, Caesar, became synonymous with supreme power in languages across the world. In Russian, it became Tsar. In German, Kaiser. In Urdu, Kaisare Rome. 2,000 years later, we still use his name to describe ultimate authority. The Roman Empire had quietly, elegantly, and almost politely begun.
For 2 centuries after Augustus, the Roman Empire was the most extraordinary political achievement humanity had yet produced. At its height under Emperor Trajan, around 117 CE, it covered 2 million square miles, from the Scottish Highlands to the deserts of Mesopotamia, from Morocco to the Black Sea. Every 5th person alive on Earth was living under Roman rule. 1 law, 1 currency, 1 postal system, 60,000 miles of engineered roads connecting 3 continents. The Mediterranean Sea, which the Romans called Mare Nostrum, our sea, was a Roman lake, carrying grain from Egypt, wine from Gaul, silk from Persia, and ideas from everywhere. Roman engineering produced aqueducts that brought fresh water to cities of 1 million people. The Pantheon in Rome, built around 125 CE, has a concrete dome that remains the largest unreinforced concrete dome on Earth today. Nobody alive fully understands how they made the concrete. Roman law produced a framework so sophisticated it forms the foundation of legal systems across the Western world to this day. For 200 years, the Pax Romana, the Roman peace, the empire enjoyed a stability no comparable civilization would see for another 1,000 years. But at noon, the sun begins to descend, and empires, like suns, do not announce their decline. They simply begin almost imperceptibly to cool. The Roman imperial system had a flaw built into its design from the very beginning. There was no reliable method of succession. Power transferred through blood, adoption, Senate approval, but ultimately through whoever commanded the loyalty of the army. When emperors were strong, this produced stability. When they were weak, it produced chaos. For most of the 1st and 2nd centuries, Rome was fortunate. It produced a sequence of capable, serious rulers, culminating in what historians call the 5 good emperors. Among them was Hadrian, who built his famous wall across northern Britain, and at the end of that sequence, Marcus Aurelius,
stoic philosopher, tireless administrator, reluctant warrior, and perhaps the most complete human being ever to hold absolute power. Marcus Aurelius wrote his private reflections in a journal he never intended to be published. Notes to himself about duty, mortality, the smallness of ego, the importance of doing what was right rather than what was comfortable. Those notes survived 2,000 years. We still read them. We call them the Meditations. His son Commodus was the beginning of the end. Not in a grand, dramatic, catastrophic way, in the way that rot always begins, quietly, with vanity, with the particular delusion of a man who inherited greatness and mistook proximity for possession of it. Commodus became obsessed with the mythological hero Hercules. He had statues made of himself in the Herculean pose, lion skin, wooden club. He renamed the months of the calendar after his own titles and renamed Rome itself after himself. He descended into the gladiatorial arena to fight, winning every bout through the simple method of ensuring his opponents were given blunted weapons or were drugged before the contest. Ancient historians record that he fought and won 12,000 staged fights. The Senate watched his performances and applauded, quietly chewing laurel leaves to suppress their laughter. But a delusional emperor is more dangerous than a merely cruel one, because his decisions have no contact with reality. Commodus spent the public treasury on his spectacles, killed hundreds of associates out of paranoia, and turned the stable empire Marcus Aurelius had handed him into something lurching and unstable. He was strangled in his bath on the last night of 192 CE by a wrestler named Narcissus, hired by a group of conspirators that included his own mistress. He was 31 years old.
He had been the last stable ruler Rome would have for a very long time. After Commodus, Rome entered what historians call the crisis of the 3rd century. From Augustus to Commodus, nearly 2 centuries, Rome had 14 emperors. In the 50 years that followed, it had 70. The Praetorian Guard, the elite soldiers assigned to protect the emperor, discovered their real nature of their position. They began auctioning the throne to the highest bidder. Senators paid fortunes for the purple. Generals raised private armies and marched on the city. In some years, 5 emperors succeeded each other within 12 months, none of them dying naturally. To pay for the perpetual armies and perpetual wars, emperors steadily debased the currency, minting coins with less and less silver until they were nearly worthless. Inflation destroyed the middle class. Trade collapsed. Cities shrank. Fields that had fed millions went unplanted because there was no one to tend them safely. Plague hooved through the weakened, overcrowded, underfed population with devastating efficiency. The Cyprian plague in the mid-3rd century killed 5,000 people a day in Rome alone. Entire provinces emptied. The bureaucratic machine that had administered 60 million people began to seize. The barbarians, Germanic tribes the Romans had spent centuries holding at bay, were watching. Julius Caesar had once sent bags of barbarian heads across the Rubicon as a message of Roman dominance. Now the successors of those same tribes stood at the frontier, watching a superpower consume itself, and began to push at the edges. One emperor attempted to halt the bleeding. Constantine the Great consolidated power in 312 CE and made 2 decisions whose consequences are still alive in the world today. First, he moved the capital. Rome itself had become ungovernable, too far west, too entrenched in its own dysfunctions, too saturated with the interests of old aristocratic families who resisted every reform. Constantine built a new capital on the Bosporus Strait, the narrow channel separating Europe from Asia. He named it Constantinople.
It sits today beneath the city of Istanbul, Turkey. Second, he adopted Christianity. For 3 centuries, Rome had persecuted Christians with systematic brutality, burning them alive, feeding them to lions, using their executions as public spectacle. The empire had treated Jesus Christ's followers as criminals and threats. Constantine looked at a fractured empire with no common identity, 1 million square miles of people who spoke different languages, worshipped different gods, and felt no particular loyalty to a distant throne, and saw in Christianity what Augustus had once seen in the old Roman myths: a unifying story, a shared identity, a reason to hold together. He organized the Council of Nicaea in 325 CE, where Christian doctrine was formalized and given the structure of a state institution. The cross replaced the eagle on Roman standards. The faith that Rome had tried to extinguish became Rome's most powerful tool of cohesion. The Eastern Empire, sheltered behind the extraordinary walls of Constantinople, would survive on the strength of these 2 decisions for another 1,000 years. The Western Empire would not. History sometimes arranges itself with an almost theatrical sense of irony. The first ruler of Rome was named Romulus, fed by a she-wolf who built his city on his brother's blood. The last emperor of the Western Roman Empire was also named Romulus, Romulus Augustulus.
In 476 CE, a Germanic chieftain named Odoacer deposed him. There was no climactic final battle, no burning of the city, no dramatic last stand. Odoacer simply informed the 16-year-old emperor that he was no longer needed, offered him a pension, and sent him to live in a castle in southern Italy. The boy lived out his days quietly, far from power, in a country that had moved on without him. And just like that, after 1,200 years, the Western Roman Empire was over. Not conquered by a greater power, not struck down from outside by some superior civilization, Rome had hollowed itself out from within. Its army grew too expensive and too powerful to control. Its citizens lost the sense of shared identity that had once made sacrifice feel meaningful. Its leaders became addicted to personal enrichment over public duty. Its politics became theatrical performance, all the old symbols and titles maintained, all the old substance gone. The SPQR still appeared on monuments across the city, the Senate still met, the old words were still spoken, but they had been emptied of everything they once meant, so gradually that nobody could name the exact moment it happened. Rome was not destroyed, Rome forgot what it was. The Eastern Roman Empire, what historians would later call the Byzantine Empire, survived nearly 1,000 years after the fall of the West, protected by the walls of Constantinople, sustained by the organizational power of the Christian Church, and by its position at the crossroads of the world's most important trade routes. It remained a major power well into the medieval age. Its final chapter came in 1453 CE. The Ottoman Sultan Mehmed II, later called Mehmed the Conqueror, brought gunpowder artillery to the walls of Constantinople, walls that had held for over 1,000 years, walls that had been considered impregnable by every army that had ever stood before them. The cannon changed the calculation. After weeks of bombardment, the walls fell. The last emperor of the Eastern Roman Empire, Constantine XI, died fighting in the breach. His body was never conclusively identified. He vanished into the fall of his city. Constantinople became Istanbul. The last echo of Rome fell silent. Or did it? Look around you, wherever you're reading this. The calendar you live your life by, January through December, is Roman. Julius Caesar commissioned its reform. Augustus gave it its final shape. When you say the month of July, you are saying Julius. When you say August, you are saying Augustus. The legal principles underlying most of the world's courts trace back to the 12 tables hung in the Roman Forum 25 centuries ago. The words republic, senate, veto,
constitution, dictator, citizen, all Latin, all Roman, all still in daily use in the world's most powerful governments. The Romance languages spoken by over 1 billion people, French, Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, Romanian, are Latin's direct descendants. The language you are reading this in carries thousands of Latin words in its bones.
The Christian Church, organized by Constantine with Roman administrative genius and spread across the world along Roman roads, shaped the moral and cultural framework of Western civilization for 2,000 years. And those roads themselves, 60,000 miles of engineered highways, determined where European towns grew, where medieval trade routes ran, where railways were later laid, where highways carry billions of cars today. The infrastructure of the modern world was built on Roman foundations, sometimes literally. Rome dissolved into everything that came after it. It did not fall so much as transform, becoming the substrate of a civilization that would eventually circle the entire globe. But the warning embedded in Rome's story is as clear and as loud today as it has ever been. Every great power that forgets the source of its greatness, that mistakes military dominance for wisdom, that allows a wealthy few to hollow out the lives of the many, that trades its common values for theatrical performance and the comfort of familiar symbols, is walking the road Rome walked first. The Romans carved SPQR on every surface they built, the Senate and the people. They meant it once. Citizens who believed in something beyond their own comfort, soldiers who fought for an idea, not just a paycheck, leaders who understood that power was a responsibility, not a reward. And then slowly that meaning drained away. The Senate became a rubber stamp, the army became a market, the people became a crowd to be fed, entertained, and distracted. The letters remained on the walls long after anyone in power remembered what they stood for. Rome was not defeated from outside. Rome was not undone by any enemy it could have fought with a sword or a ship or a legion. Rome was undone by the gap between what it claimed to be and what it had chosen to become, by the distance between its words and its actions, by the inability of its leaders to place the health of the whole above the appetite of the few. That gap does not belong only to Rome. It has appeared in every civilization that ever grew powerful enough to stop being afraid of losing what it had built. It is appearing in different forms, in different places in the world right now. History does not repeat itself exactly, but it has patterns. And the pattern of Rome, the rise through discipline and inclusion, the peak of genuine greatness, the slow rot of inequality and delusion and theatrical power, is one of history's most precisely documented warnings. The she-wolf nursed Romulus and Remus back to life when every force in the world had conspired to let them die. She gave Rome its beginning. What Rome did with that beginning over 1,200 years is one of the most extraordinary and most cautionary stories our species has produced. The question it leaves us with is not historical. It is not about Rome at all, finally. It is about what we are willing to be in order to remain what we believe we are.